Hi there, my name is Phil from 2020 Sounds. Thank you for clicking on our channel. Today's video is something a little bit different. I wanted to do something a little bit more personal. So I decided to create a series of videos which detail how I started my business. So this will be the first part in a 4-part series. So this part will be about my love affair of music and how music has played a constant part in my life. The second part will be how I decided to go on a DJ course, learn as much as I can, and then start a DJ business. Part 3 will be about how, even though you have everything you ever wanted or everything you ever dreamed of, if you lose drive and inspiration, how that really dissipates incredibly quickly. And part 4 will be about what I've learned within that 11-year period and how I hope by listening to my story and listening to the lessons that I've learned, then you too, if you wanted to start your own business, you can as well. And there'll be some lessons I hope that you can take from this. So part 1 then, today's part, my love affair of music. It is honestly very, very difficult to explain why I love music so much. It would be very easy to say that, well, if you love music, it's easy for you to become a DJ. That one doesn't lead to the other. I've always been, music is, for want of a better term, it's actually like part of my DNA. I would be absolutely lost without music. It has been with me through every single step of I'm 42 this year, and music has been with me every single day for nearly those 42 years. So there are many an embarrassing picture of myself when I first started listening to music. So I was toddler age, probably, as I say, 3 or 4, and I had these huge headphones on with this woolen tank top, and I was allowed to listen to the charts. It was on a Sunday evening. We had these big stereos with graphic equalizers, and I was allowed to listen to the charts music, and I used to look forward to that so much. I can remember just obviously not being able to wait to be able to listen to the chart music, and for my parents it was a dream because obviously it just shut me up. I was in my own world, and it was brilliant. My parents didn't have a huge influence on my music tastes. They didn't. I remember listening to their vinyl. I wasn't allowed to put the vinyl obviously on and play them, but they put them on for me, and I was fascinated by it. And if you're really into music, or if you're going through good times or bad times, you know that music is escapism. It takes you to a different world. And I've always been a loner. I've always been more comfortable on my own company than I ever have been with the company of others. And while that might sound sad to say, I do believe actually being a loner has shaped my career, because I can allow myself to take a step back and make informed decisions on my own and come to decisions by myself. I believe that being a loner has actually stood me in good stead to be a business owner. So, as I say, music has always been a huge part of my life. So I remember, as I say, with such fond memories listening to the charts and having music on all the time. And then when I would go to my grandparents' house, they would also put the vinyl on. I would listen to music. So ever since I can remember, I've started listening to music really early on. And back then, I never knew what I was listening to. I mean, I know now what my mum, because I've asked, but I was listening to things like Queen and Alison Moyet, and at my grandparents' house, would you believe, Foster and Allen? You'll have to look that up. So yeah, that music from a very, very early age has been part of me. I remember then, shortly after that period, my mum worked for the Beefeater, so she was a waitress at one of the restaurants, and part of the children's menu there was the Mr. Happy, the Mr. Men series, so Mr. Happy, Mr. Square, that side of thing. And I remember you would have to save up coupons to get what you wanted. And I remember there was this Mr. Happy radio. So I saved up all my coupons to get this Mr. Happy radio. And then my dad then put this Mr. Happy radio on a piece of string, and it was round my neck. And then literally wherever I went, I had music on. So it was the radio obviously all the time. And that's what I did. It was like my my own world. I had my own world strapped around my neck, for want of a better term, but music was always around me when I was a very young age. And I remember a little after that, I got my first ever tape player. I think it was around about, and this is how old I am, so this is around about 1987, because I got the Michael Jackson Bad album. And I still to this day, as I say, nearly 42, I still to this day know every single word off that album, inside out, upside down, back to front. I absolutely, well, I must have worn that tape out. And then shortly after that, my parents realised how much I loved music. And they got me a twin deck player. So I will then be able to take music off the charts and make my own tapes. And this was like, it's a whole new world for me then, because then I was making my own mixtapes. And I think that from very early on, that making mixtapes and doing that, it formed an idea in my head. Obviously, back then, I never knew that I would be what I am today, or I never had aspirations of being a DJ. But I do believe that little spark early on from there started something within me, because what I would do is I would listen to an album, and I would listen to, say, the 12 songs on the album. And I would then know how to start, middle and end an album. So I'd make sure the album, if I was doing a mixtape, it would have a big start and then a fade out towards the end. And maybe that song didn't go very well with that song, but play that song next to that one. So I was in my head always trying to make the perfect mixtape. And I remember coming home from school and I was so excited because I'd listened to I'd had the chart music that I taped on a tape, and then I was going to make other tapes from those charts. And I would spend literally weeks and weeks and weeks making tapes, and that's all I wanted to do. I was just fascinated by making tapes, and I would then go to school with these tapes, and I would exchange these tapes for people, and I would go through all those with them, and I would get money for them, which I then got in turn for getting sweets as well. So it was great. As I say, it was my escapism. Music back then, when I was a child, it was my escapism. As I said before, I wasn't the most social person, and to this day, I'm really still not the most social person, but it gave me another world, and that's what music gave me. Fast forward on a little later into my early teens, and my parents sadly split up in 93, so I was 15 at the time, 14 going into my 15th birthday. And obviously, for anyone that's come from a broken home, that becomes even more so difficult. And as I said before, being a loner, I really did retreat into myself then, and music really was my world at that point. And I started to listen to loads and loads and loads of different things. I would be getting tapes of people, and we moved to Milton Keynes for a short period of time, and Steve and my brother and I, we never really settled in Milton Keynes. New school, new friends and everything else, we didn't really settle. So it was agreed that my dad would come back to my dad back in Kent, and we'd finish our education and then make our decision based on that. Sadly, in between that time, my dad fell on hard times, and we got taken back to Milton Keynes again because my dad sadly couldn't look after us. But again, through that really difficult period, music again was my constant. I was always listening to music. By this point now, it wasn't tapes, it was more CDs, and I was fascinated by it. Fast forward on a couple of years, 94, 95, my mum met somebody, Steve, who she later would go on and marry. And Steve really did open up my world, in so much as that he was fascinated by music like I was, but he had thousands and thousands and thousands of CDs, and I was just mesmerised by the amount of CDs. I couldn't consume this much music quick enough. I just wanted to listen to literally every single CD that he had. And at that time, and it's going to sound incredibly cliche, obviously going through a difficult period, being unsettled and not really having a feeling like you've got a place in the world, I got into really sort of heavy metal and thrash metal, and Steve was a big part of that because he was listening to things like Metallica, Slayer, Testament, Pantera, all those sort of things, and I really got into that as well. And we went on to go to lots of concerts together, and at that time Steve was very much what I needed, more just as a person, but also as much because of the huge new injection of music that I was listening to. So it was great for me. And then from there, obviously, I then started to work, and then I used to then literally, I got paid weekly, I remember, and I would spend virtually all my money on CDs. I would buy singles and albums, and I was just literally building up my music collection. And I would listen to everything at this point. Because of that influence with Steve, I never had... So I used to like one thing and then the other thing, and I used to flip between the... But with Steve's influence, he said, well, you don't just have to listen to thrash metal or death metal. You don't have to listen to, The Cure or the Smiths. You can listen to so many other things, and he was a big influence on that. So I would listen to pop, and I was listening to rock, and I was listening to all sorts of genres of music. So like my music vocabulary at that point just expanded massively, and I was listening to so much, and I had probably my late teens, I had a music collection to rival anybody. I listened to so much. And then that's really where it all really started for me from then, because music was such a huge part of my life. And then sadly, Steve and my mum split up in 2007, and again, obviously that didn't end too well. But I look back obviously with anger because of what my mum went through, but equally as well with time on my hands, I look back and say, well, he was such a big part of my life, and I'm grateful for those good times that we had, and the concerts and the influence of music we had. And I do believe that at that time, when my 94, 95, when I first met Steve and my mum and Steve first got together, that was the huge part of my life that I desperately needed. I think that was the lift that I needed. And that was, it just took the blinkers off, and my music became so widespread since then. So I'm really grateful for that. And I do believe that, as I say, I really would have liked Steve to see what I become later on in life, and that I hope that he would have been proud that I'd gone on to become a DJ, and I hope that he would have gone on to, I don't know, just to see what I've done really. But again, because of my mum and the relationship, it's difficult really to really sort of look back with that without having some sort of tainted memory. But still, so that really is my, as I say, my love affair with music. It's very difficult for me to tell you what music means to me, to sum it up in a sentence or a paragraph. But as I say, music has been a constant in my life. It's gone through, as I say, I've gone through some very difficult periods in my life, and music has been the one true friend, really, for the want of a better term, throughout all of this. And I say this to absolutely everyone. Music, makes the good times better, and music makes the difficult times more manageable. Certainly in my case, that's always been the case. Whenever I've had a bad day or I'm not feeling great or anything else, music has always been there for me. And I can listen to an album now, some 20 years that I listened to initially, and I still feel just as good about that album today as I did 20 years ago. So music has always been, as I say, a huge catalyst in my life. And as I say, I am not a DJ because of my love affair of music, which sounds strange. Being a DJ for me is the music that I listen to and the music I like doesn't get, for the want of a better term, doesn't get tainted, because that music to me is incredibly personal, and I wouldn't expect to play that music on an evening or a function. So my love of music changes again, because I get to see the euphoria of people dancing or having their first dance, and all the wonderful interactions people have with people when they listen to music. And that's why music is so good, because I've got my own music which I love and which will be very dear to me until my dying day. But equally, there's that music that people will love and dance to and euphoric, and that is the wonderful thing about music, and that's why it's played such a huge part in my life. I hope that makes sense, and I hope you understand, and I hope you too share music the same way as I do, because it's as I say, for me it's just the most amazing thing in my life, music. So that's part one. In part two, I'll go on to describe how I took my love affair for music and then wanted to then start my own business. So that's it for today. I hope you found it insightful. If you do have any comments, then please do put them in the section below. Thank you once again for listening and watching. I hope you subscribe to my channel. Take care.